Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or just welcome if you're one of my subscribers. This is a different kind of video. I know some of you might think I'm really weird for making a birth story video on the birth of my son that's now 20 months old. But the thing is when I gave birth to him, I wasn't a YouTuber, and I wish that I was at that point. I was still obsessed with becoming a YouTuber, and now that I actually am, I just feel like it's just been a dream to make this video, and I'm more or less just doing it for me. So yeah, I'm gonna try not to talk too much because I tend to be a chatty Cathy, but I'm gonna jump right in and try and tell you guys as much as I can without taking all day. I found out I was pregnant on February 28th, 2013, and I was about only like 4 weeks pregnant when I found out. It was very early on. Odin was kind of planned, kind of not planned. Like, we were just kind of seeing what would happen kind of thing. We had talked about it, and you know, like, we both definitely wanted to have one. We just weren't like pushing it or anything per se. We definitely weren't trying, but we were like really open to the idea of it. And so yeah, I found out, and then my first trimester was fairly straightforward. I did end up going on medical leave from work because I had extremely bad nausea and I had to go on medication. I believe it was called Diclectin. And that was the only way that I could eat enough nutritious food for baby and myself because I was just really, really nauseous. That was the only like really bad side effect that I had during my first trimester, other than just being like tired, etc. But because I got to go on medical leave from work, that really helped me to get through it and move on. Then in my second trimester, like in my first trimester, I didn't really gain any weight, and then in my second trimester, things were going along smoothly. I went off of that medication. I wasn't super nauseous anymore. Things were just going. Second trimester was my favorite because I was still small enough to go camping and do fun things, but I was getting a little baby bump, and I was just really enjoying being pregnant. And then my weight like just skyrocketed. Like, I went to like go to my monthly checkup. At that point it was still just monthly, and in between the 1 month to the next month, I can't remember which months it was exactly, I had grown 10 inches in the measurement on my tummy, and I had gained, I believe, like 25 pounds. Like, it was insane. It just like whoosh, right? So right away the doctors were really concerned. Like, that was the month that you go in for the scheduled normal gestational diabetes testing, and they basically were just like, we know already that you have it because that's what would cause this. But so I went in and got it, and of course came back positive that I had developed gestational diabetes. And I wasn't surprised because my whole maternal line, like, they all had diabetes. So I had that like genetic risk factor going in. I wasn't too overweight when I got pregnant, but I was like had a little bit of extra weight, so that would help, or that would go against it as well, right? Like, that was a downside. So once I found that out though, they put me into like to see a dietitian and to see a nurse and to go for regular checkups every single week at the hospital to check my diet, and I had to test my blood sugars at home before and after each meal. And that was an adjustment for me. Like, I'm just really, really grateful that I was able to control it with my diet, and I didn't have to take insulin injections because I just hate needles, and poking my fingers every day was enough of an issue. And at that time I was working, and my employer just, they were as understanding as they could be, but they didn't really get it. Like, working for me was just miserable because I would have to go to the bathroom all the time to take my blood, and yeah, it was just really uncomfortable. But other than that, my whole second trimester was really good. Then in my third trimester, because I was being so closely monitored for my gestational diabetes and eating an extremely healthy diet at that point, like, the other thing I didn't mention was that, you know, before I found out I had the diabetes, I think I was having ice cream probably like every day. Like I was like just eating whatever I wanted, which wasn't good. And another precursor that I should explain is that I was completely 100% vegan up until my first like halfway through my first trimester, and then I just caved, and like it went from having eggs to 2 hours later having a burger to the next day having a steak at the keg. Like I just like, once I got those tastes back in my mouth being pregnant, I just went for it. And I think I had such a release inside me of wanting to eat all those foods that it was just like game over, like eating all this bad stuff. So to go from that to, in my third trimester, eating a very healthy, balanced carbs, proteins, you know, complex carbs and really healthy lean proteins. And just, so when you have to test your blood to see exactly how the food that you're eating is affecting your body and your baby, like there's nothing more motivating and helpful to really keep you on track, right? So my entire third trimester, when baby's growing so fast, I didn't gain a single pound. Once I realized, like they told me, okay, you've gained about, I think I gained 30 pounds total, and they were like, you'd be fine to just stay the exact same weight the rest of your pregnancy. And I thought they were crazy. I'm like, there's no way I'll be able to do that. The baby's getting so big. And you know what? I did it. I did without much effort. I went for a walk after every meal as well. That's the only exercise I did. And then just ate this really balanced meal plan and went over it every week with a dietitian and got help from her on things that I was noticing that would affect my sugar, etc., and things that I could eat, and found that it didn't affect me. And she was really helpful on, you know, helping me figure out what to do, right? So that was like basically my health journey through my pregnancy. So near the end, because Odin was a diabetes baby, like they tend to get very large. So I was very round, especially I'm only 5 feet tall, and I was about, at the end, I was 180 pounds. And so I had thought one day that my water had like leaked or was starting to break or something was going on because there was a sudden issue there. And I'd gone to the hospital and they kept me there all day because there was no doctor available and it was horrible. And they did all the testing and had me on the monitor and checked for the fluids, and there was no actual amniotic fluid leaking or anything. So but they thought I had a hind leak. And but they did send me in for an ultrasound, and they did discover at that time that Odin had very limited fluid inside. He was pressing on his cord a little bit. So that doctor told me that she would tell me to prepare myself for the possibility of a C-section, just so that I wouldn't be totally devastated if it did go that route. And she said that for the next 2 weeks that I had left before my due date, I needed to come back in every third day for a stress test monitoring on the baby and a ultrasound. And that if I hadn't gone into the labor naturally by my due date, that they would definitely induce. So this went on. So then for the next 2 weeks, I went to the hospital every third day and got an ultrasound every third day and a stress monitor every third day. I basically felt like I lived there because I was going back so often. And then finally, the date that we were supposed to induce me was actually a couple days before my due date. And I went in all excited thinking that's it, we're inducing me. Like any mom can relate when you're at the end and you're just like, get this baby out of me. And they kept me there all day again because there was no doctor available. And the way that my hospital worked was basically like one doctor can say whatever their opinion is and whatever they have to say, but when it comes down to it and the business is going to happen, it's whatever doctor's on duty that day. They call the shots. And the doctor that was on that day, after keeping me there all bloody day, came in and was like, you know what? I understand like your initial ultrasound had low fluids, but the ones that I'd been getting every 3 days throughout the last 2 weeks had gone kind of up and down, but overall, he said, showed that there wasn't that much of a decrease and that it would just be safer and better to leave baby in me. And, like, what a confusing thing for me. I'm like, there's so many different doctors telling me different things. I'm so excited to just have baby. I want to meet him. And at the same time thinking, okay, I understand what you're saying. Like, if it's better to keep him inside, then it's better to keep him inside. Anyways, like 2 days later, on my due date, I go into labor. And it was about 6 a.m. I woke up feeling cramps. And I thought, oh, like, you know, you get so many cramps and different feelings when you're pregnant, and I've never had a baby before, so I thought, oh, it's just a cramp. But I noticed that it got really bad, and then it kind of would go away. And I was like, that's what everyone that's described contractions to me has explained it, right? So I'm like, okay, well, just go back to bed, see what happens. So I went back to sleep for like 10 minutes, and then another one came. So then I was kind of like awake because I'm like, what's going on? Let's just wait. If there's a third one, then maybe you're in labor. About 20 minutes later, there's a third one. Then I'm like, no, wait, if there's a fourth, anyways, they didn't stop, right? And so they were very irregular. Like, I would get one sometimes like right after another. Then there'd be like half an hour in between one, but I knew I was obviously starting labor. At around 11 a.m., I called my doctor and said that, you know, like, I was definitely in labor and that the pain was getting pretty bad. Like, what should I do? And he said to come in to see him at 2 o'clock, and they would check where I was at that point and then see how things were. So I knew by this point that I was going to need an epidural. Like, you know, I was very open-minded to the pain, and like, I wasn't one of those moms that was like, I'm not getting an epidural, or I am, or this or that. I was like, you know, when it comes down to it, I've never had a baby before. I don't know what the heck's going to happen. I don't know what my pain tolerance is. Like, I won't know until I'm in that moment. But by that moment, I knew that I needed help. I was having a really, really hard time. I was keeled over, and I knew that I was still even just in early labor, and I was like not handling it. So I went in at 2 o'clock and could barely get into the appointment, like just in so much pain, having contractions while he's trying to examine me. It was just like he was noticing they would come boom, 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 and then they would space out. They were just so irregular, though. So he checked me, and I was 4 centimeters dilated, and he said that's kind of like the cusp where they say it's okay for you to go to the hospital, but he was like, it's up to you. If you're more comfortable at home, because it could be a lot longer still, then stay at home and go later. So I wanted to do, like, thinking that that would be the best thing, go home. So I went home, got in the bath, and was in the shower and trying to do that, and that was really, really helping. But the problem is the contractions were getting to the point where if I moved at all, it was so painful to adjust to the new position, and I was really getting worried that there was like no way I was gonna get out of that bathtub. Like, I thought we would have to call an ambulance. So I was like, you guys, we gotta go, because I'm not gonna get there otherwise, because I can't really move anymore. So we went to the hospital, and they admitted me. Everything was fine. Baby was doing good. They were really confident that I could still have a natural delivery. Things were, you know, going along very slowly, but I got the epidural right away. My water broke the moment they sat me, like, when I got admitted and I got onto my bed, my water broke all over the bed right away. So they were like thinking like things are gonna get moving. Well, in total, my labor was 25 hours. So at that point, I think it must have been, I started labor at 6 a.m. and then it was about midnight that, you know, things were slowing down. And then at about 4 in the morning, they'd said, you know, baby's not progressing. You're actually, he was moving back farther up, and I was starting to close. So they gave me at that point the drugs that accelerate your contractions and make them more intense. And I was on an epidural, so I didn't feel anything, but they said, okay, we're doing this, and we're going to come back and check in 2 hours. And then that's like the cutoff. We have to decide, you know, to either have a C-section at that point. So 2 hours later, yeah, they came back. Nothing had changed. I was literally exactly the same. No improvement. So they call that, you know, failure to progress or whatever. They called my doctor. My doctor came, said, definitely we need to do an emergency C-section. We have to call the OB, you know what I mean, the one that can do the surgery. And so she came and she was like, yes, definitely you need an emergency C-section. And with 10 minutes, I was in the operating room. And it was really like scary in the sense that I was very open to it. I kind of could sense it was going that direction, but it was just happening so fast at that point. And Jasper had been sleeping next to me. And I was supposed to be sleeping, but just couldn't, right? So he just woke up to this, like, we're going to the operating room. So he was freaked out. So I had a hard time calming down myself, right? And then when we got into that operating room, like the medicine they give you, like I was shaking. And that was like the worst part, is that I really felt like I was going to throw up, but I wasn't allowed to because I would have choked, and I was shaking so bad. And it was very, very traumatic. My they used my epidural line to give me the medicine for the C-section, and it had been in already for like 14 hours or something, and I don't think it was working properly because I felt like way more than I ever should have felt. But when baby came out, I was just like, is he okay? Is he okay? And they showed him to me, but I was so out of it that I couldn't even enjoy like the moment of seeing my son for the first time. I just wanted them to tell me that he was okay, and then it was like, if I knew he was okay, I could just like lay there and focus on surviving, basically. And so Jasper brought him over to me and showed him to me, and they put him on me for a few moments, but I was so nauseous, I thought I was gonna throw up on him. So I was like, can you take him? Like, I felt so guilty. And then, like, they put me into recovery, and it was just like, you're supposed to like just mellow out in recovery, and just like, you have to wait until all your freezing wears off before they'll allow you to go up to the ward to see your baby. So like, I should have been using that time to kind of rest up and recuperate, but all I wanted to do was go see him. So I just kept fighting the freezing, like fighting my muscles and trying to make them move, and like lifting my legs myself, like just being ridiculous. And once the freezing started to wear off and I started to feel the pain, then I wanted painkillers. And they got me that, and then I felt fine. And you know, I got up there finally to see him and just to hold him, and I fed him right away. And you know, it was just so amazing to just get him. And at that point, like, I wasn't so sick feeling anymore. I'd gotten through the surgery. I'd survived. I wasn't dying anymore or feeling like I was. And I got to have him, and it was amazing. And, you know, like, he came out at just under 10 pounds. So they told me actually that my size, I'm 5 feet tall, like my measurements, like I never would have gotten him out. And so, you know, I kind of was a little bit resentful for a while that they should have induced me when we had talked about it, because he might have been small enough to come out, but it is what it is. I'm just grateful that he came out super healthy. He basically came out like a 1-month-old. He could hold up his head and everything, and I fed him right away, and like he was just very healthy and very alert, and just a really like beautiful little baby boy, right? So I filmed this today because I have some time. He's not home yet, but I am definitely going to insert a clip of him. If you haven't seen him already, he's definitely in my vlogs, which I make every single day. So subscribe to my channel. I make videos all the time. You guys get to come with us on our journey of life. Please give this video a thumbs up. It was more or less for me, but if you guys like it, that's great to know. And if you have any questions, like I just kind of tried to give an overview. I know this video is already way, way, way longer than I wanted it to be. So if there's details that you're curious about that I didn't say, then just ask the questions below. I'm very open. I would love to answer them for you. And thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Let me go. Lower to the camera.